Hey people, this is Joe Bright, your host of Poetry Song. Poetry is something that drives us through every day. Well, mine anyway. And I constantly battle with the words in my mind and in my soul. Poetry Song takes everyday topics and put them in verse just for you. The battle for dominance is on. Join me every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. until 8:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll be changing the world with poetry, one line at a time, right here on Poetry Song. Roadblock. My brain is stuck in a tunnel of words swirling around in my head, and no two want to stick together. But I know how I write. It's the paper and the book, the ink and the pen, the connection the two make when I strike the page. The page being blank, devoid, opaque. I strike out, and there are no words that stick. They glide out, flow, drip through, but there's no cohesion. So I keep writing, but it feels like pushing against a mountain. There are more words, so I just keep writing like a fist hitting against a brick wall, and the words don't make sense. So I just keep punching until my fingers ache, bleed, until my hand is numb and all the nonsense is gone, like the blaring lights in traffic ignite, and all you can see is the few feet in front of you, but you know your destination because you've traveled that road before, but it feels different, and you know that can't be true because it's the same damn road you were on yesterday. Because the crux of the matter is, I have to be accountable for this life, not my death. When I'm dead, I'm gone, and there won't be no coming back. Not to hear, for me. When I'm done, I'm done. I don't want to leave behind a string of bad decisions that overshadow the good, a heap of debt that makes my life look like I wasted it, a mountain of worries that makes you want to disengage from my last wishes and just leave me unattended. Funny thing is, I never gave my life this kind of thought when I was very young and thought that was what tomorrows were for. But tomorrow is here now, and I got business to take care of. Laugh, because it's funny how we put so much to the side. Those little things, big things, hard to handle things for later. They're important too. And the words, they just keep flowing out like a torrential downpour. Each one seeming to be more important than the next until it's all wrung out like a dish towel. See? No cohesion. Once upon a time when I was naive, I believed in fairy tales. I believed there were monsters under my bed. I believed if you rubbed two pennies together, your wish would come true. I believed that when my girlfriend and I cut our thumbs and squished our blood together, that made us sisters. Once upon a time when I was still fresh out the gate in the world of being a young adult, a teen, I believed if I closed my eyes when a boy kissed me that it meant he loved me. I believed that friends didn't turn their backs on you. I believed every word from my parents' mouth was the truth. I believed that chocolate was an aphrodisiac. I believed that if you said green witch in the bathroom mirror 3 times in the dark, that she would appear. I believed if I got up early and did my chores and homework on Saturdays, I could go out early. I believed if I tried hard and remained consistent, it would pay off. Still kind of waiting on that to happen. For some, but not for everybody. Once upon a time, when I was blinded by the stories of success and wealth, fame and riches, I believed I could get a piece of that action if I was in the right place at the right time, standing in the right spot, wearing the right clothes, leaning the right way, with the setting sun hitting me at just the right angle. I would be seen and discovered by the right person who would just so happen to be a wealthy producer and become immediately enamored with my presence and would approach me with an offer I couldn't refuse. Whisk me away in his limo and I will become all those wonderful things we all wish for and live happily ever after. This little girl grew up in a big family with no money and very little hopes of ever being more than what she was. She grasped on to every good dream, wish, and happy fairy tale she could to escape the horrors of life in the ghetto and live someplace shiny and free. But the fairy tale with a happy ending? I live in a world, the real world, and until I take my last breath, it's always going to be once upon a time. Sometimes you'll feel like you're being used. You'll want to lash out at the world and curse at strangers just because they happen to be standing right in front of you when you turned. Sometimes it will wake you out of your bed and yell for help, and your senses won't be ready for it. But you'll rub your eyes, scratch your head, drag your hands across your face, utter inaudible sounds, but you'll respond. And at first, it will be because you know it's the right thing to do. But after a while, it will feel like a part of your day. And when you don't do it, everything will stop, take a back seat, hang on the hinges until you do it. It will consume you and your day. You won't like it so much one day because it will take all of your patience to do it. And there will be no rewards, no accolades, no parties or pats on the back. People who don't know you now won't know you 2 years from now. You won't get promoted on the job or a pay raise. You won't get preferential seating at the theaters, restaurants, clubs, or events. Your name will not be revered in the newspapers, magazines, web, not anywhere. Your checker at the grocery store or the person that does your hair, nails, or dry cleaning, if you got it that way, they won't treat you any better or worse because you did it today, yesterday, or will be doing it again tonight. There's going to come a time when you're going to wonder if it's worth all your effort, and you're going to want to stop. And when you stop, the guilt will begin to eat at you, and then the shame. And the crazy part for you will be is that it's all coming from you because you said you didn't want anybody to know. But was that really a smart choice? So you'll rethink your last decision and realize that maybe if you stop asking questions that you know the answers to, stop worrying about whether or not it's worth it, stop listening to the complaints of others who aren't doing it and promise to do it but never do, maybe you can stop falling into the pitfalls of people who fail to understand why you do what you do. Charity, it's not for everyone. Good morning. This is Joe Bright, and I am your host for Poetry Song. Hello, people. Yeah, I thought I'd just change it up today. Give you all a little bit of something to think about just before you go on break. For those of you who have to punch the clock, and it's a whole bunch of us that have to do that, I am one of those. I don't have to punch a clock. I might punch a clock, but I don't have to punch a clock. Yeah, stay away from the man. This is Poetry Song Radio. No music, just poetry. And before I get started on my rant, because I always have a rant. I feel like I always have a rant. I want y'all to know that I am Joe Bright. I am a poet, author, and co-host of the Jamaica Funk Show along with Catherine Winston and Christos Tausitis. And you can hear our Jamaica Funk Show also on Spreaker. Hey, I had a frog in my throat. Get out. Welcome to the day. How y'all like that weather out there? Interesting, right? Yeah, because climate change is not real. At least that's what the DT says. This morning, I wanted to give a little talk about a couple of things. And the first thing on my list, believe it or not, it's called gender fluidity. And back in the day, they used to call it gender equality. And there's a lot to it. And you're probably asking, well, what's gender fluidity? Gender fluidity is a gender identity which refers to various things of a person, how a person identifies themselves over time. A gender fluid person may at any time identify as a male or female or neutral, so I'll get to that, or any other non-binary identity, which is who we all are. We're binary, or some combination of identities. Now, their gender can also vary at random or vary in response to different circumstances. And why is this important? Because a lot of people today, especially our young people, they have gender fluidity. And I'm bringing this up because I was noticing in the news recently about a particular school in London, and what they want to call her the head mistress. And what she did was she made it possible for these girls in this school, it's an all-girls school, to try to identify themselves because, girls and boys are the same. If they grow up thinking they don't feel comfortable in their skin and they're trying to identify who they are. And it's a real big question. I mean, that's why we had this big thing, and we still do, about the bathroom bill. It all kind of ties in together. So there was this school out of the UK, right? And the head mistress, what she did was she created a protocol for the students, who are all girls, right? So that at any time, if they feel like that they don't want to be identified as a female or a boy, that they, fill out this application and, with the help of their parents, but it's, their own personal way that they see themselves. And the school will allow them to be identified as a boy if they so choose to do that. And I thought, wow, what an interesting story. So what I did was I did my homework on it, because for me, I thought, well, I have a son who is gay. I have family members who are gay, lesbian, probably more than who have stepped out. But, they all have an identity, and they would like to be seen as the person who they are. So what gender fluidity does is it helps us, and it helps them to see them as who they see as themselves, if I'm making any sense. Okay? So I looked it up in Wikipedia, because I'm like, I really need to get a handle on this gender fluidity. And I know a whole bunch of us who do not have that problem are really just not versed in what gender fluidity is. Yeah, we're used to the term gender equality because that came from a movement back in the 80s, in the 70s. And a lot of people think that it was associated with the women's rights movement, or just because a person said they were or gay or lesbian. Well, back in the day, you were homosexual or you were lesbian, and that was it. And today, it is just so much more than that. So Wikipedia, which I have to admit, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things, because you think you know something and you don't know. And Wikipedia says it's been a more pronounced thing in the last 2 or 3 years. So where do we get this term gender fluidity? It's meant to be like a gender flux, so to speak. A person who is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer, right? Now, and then so you have these I want to say identities, because that's what they are. And you have, I found, for me, I found 9 basic ones that really should help us try to wrap our heads around the way people think today, who are dealing with what's going on in the news today, especially with the current administration, and how he is actually thinking about turning back the laws on gender identity. The bathroom bill, which was a big thing about 1.5 years ago, it still is a big thing here in the state where I live. And so here's the sum of it all. Where do we start? I'm going to play you this one little thing. It's called One Bad Thought. And then after that, we're going to come back and I'm going to do the rundown on it. Okay? One bad thought. 2 days ago, I was uniquely pissed. One thought after another came into my head that seemed to make me angrier by the minute. As the day progressed, there was no one thing that I could put my finger on that would help me pinpoint this wretched disposition. It just was. And no amount of positive thinking seemed to help. A good thought was surreptitiously replaced by a bad one. My mind seemed to want to follow the torrent of reviling going on in my head. I had to physically, outwardly, inwardly, lovingly, with fierce determination, tell myself, cut this crap out. You just can't let some random thought take root unsuspiciously and grow under the guise of a passing thought, memory, forgotten conversation. Nip it, squash it, stomp it out. It has no place in who you are today. Don't let it fester. Don't give it breath. Whether it's right or wrong, whether you were judged, justified, or seek to be vilified. It is a was, a should have been, a should have said, a never was. It has no weight unless you pick it up. It has no credence unless you give it. It has no power unless you give it power. Go away, bad thought. I'm better than that now. I may have been that other person before, but I've grown. I've matured. I've learned from my mistakes and the mistakes of others. I won't allow you to hold me back another second. I've replaced you with thoughts more near and dear to my heart. So it shrank away and scuttled back into the darkness from whence it came. But I have to be on the lookout for it, set up my guards and sentries. Because first chance it gets, it's coming back. Yeah, we all get that, don't we? One bad thought. Anyway, according to gender.wikia, wikia.com, all right, let me just tell you what neutros means, Neutrois, for those of you like me who just really didn't know what that meant. It is a non-binary gender often associated with a neutral or null gender. It may also be associated with genderlessness and shares many similarities with agender. That's a whole word, agender. Agender people who consider themselves neutrally gendered or genderless, but some may identify as both, while others may prefer one term over another. And then the other word I want you to keep in mind is dysphoria. It is the opposite of euphoria or pleasure. And it is an experience of discomfort or disconnect with one's assigned gender, often accompanied excuse me, with a strong desire to change one's sex to better match their identity or to be called the correct gender in their language. Now, it is not directly attached to gender identity. Dysphoria can happen to anybody, but in the terms of what we're talking about right now, what I'm talking about, that's what we're talking about. Now, in the word neutros, people prefer their gender expression to be gender neutral or androgynous and may vary from person to person. And some neutros people wish to use the medical term transitions, I'm reading this wrong, to remove all sex characteristics, and others specific or some don't desire surgery at all. So it sounds like it can be a very difficult thing to kind of ponder over if you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, and you've always felt that way from a child. Now the story that I got this from, I was just like, wow, who knew or who can even begin to understand what happens inside of a person's head who thinks like that from almost the time they will understand, why do I have a penis? Why do I have a vagina? When I feel like I shouldn't have either. Oh, why do I have a penis when I want a vagina? Or why do I have a vagina when I want a penis? It's more than just being gay, lesbian, transgendered. It's so much more than that. And that's why they're calling it, and have been calling it, gender fluidity. Now, Some people who are neutrals people, they don't have their gender legally recognized on their documentation. And in an increasing number of countries, states, and sites allow for non-binary identities to be recognized, including Facebook, which has a neutros as a gender option. Now, that kudos to Facebook for that, right? To say, are you male, female, or neutros? And that kind of helps them say, I can choose this. They can be of any sex and have any sexuality, and that's fine. So then I looked up what is gender flux, uh, gender queer, transgender. That's what gender flux can be. Other things can be multigender, non-binary, transgender, agender. Gender flux is the gender identity in which the gender intensity varies over time, and it can be seen as a form of gender fluidity, okay, between being agender and one or more other gender identities. And some tend to feel one gender in gender flux. Now, to talk about the gender identity protocol, a story on Yahoo News by Nick Levine, and in London, a girls' school introduced new measures. All right, and what he did was he consulted with the students to find out their main issue. And according to the school's high mistress, because they don't call her, the dean, the school's high mistress, she said there was a preoccupation among the schools to look after people who don't want to identify as one gender or another. And this was told to the Sunday Times in the city of London. And students and the new protocol who reach the age of 16, that they can submit a request to the school to be known as a boy or gender neutral while at school. How about that? Now the parents are also going to be involved in that decision. Sue Sanders of the school out of the United Kingdom, she's in charge of an organization which works towards achieving LGBT equality in education, said that the measures were smart and sensible. Now they're doing this on the other side of the ocean. How about that? Well, we can't even get people to understand how important it is for people to just be able to go to the bathroom. The bathroom bill holds a whole lot more interesting things in it than just the bathroom. But it has an underlying evil to it, thanks to our government. But basically, it was saying that we should have bathrooms for people. Now, imagine that. In our country, we can't get the bathrooms straight. And yet here they are in London with this one school for girls where they have actually established a protocol for girls who want to have their gender fluidity. They want to have the right to be called a boy or a girl while they're at school. And why shouldn't they? We have to be open to allowing ourselves to see our children as who they are and accept them and not judge them. So where did that term come from? It came from, get this, Dear Goffs. And I said, okay, now I'm going way out of my realm of understanding. And so I had to, of course, look that up. And it was back to Wikipedia again. And Dear Goffs, that was just a whole nother world for me. But that's just another of the gender fluidities or the gender fluxes that we all have to deal with in today's society of people if we want to become accepting of each other. So I found this one thing in Wikipedia, and it gave me nine very specific gender identities to look at. All right. The first one was called the GSM, Gender and Sexual Minorities. All right. Then, and GSMs are favored over by some, but not all, LGBT because it's all inclusiveness of it. All right. Then there was GNC, which is one gender does not conform to male or female gender expression traits expected by society's norms. Then there was MSM, men who have sex with men, use medical and social sciences, does not specify one's sexuality. in explanation, or e.g., gay. Then there's CD, cross-dressing, one who wears clothing or other items contrary to societal gender norms and does not signify gender identity. And most of us know that one. Then there's MAAB / FAAB / UAAB. The first one, MAAB, MAP, is male assigned at birth. And then the other one, it was female assigned at birth. And the last one is unassigned at birth. Either term could be used for a person who is transgender and was assigned a different sexuality at birth, either a man or a female, or a man to female. How about that? Then there's CAMAB and CAFAB, CAMAB and CAFAB. Now, do they pronounce those that way? I don't know. But I just want to just give you the information that I found. Now, CAMAB stands for coercively assigned male, and CAFAB means female at birth. So it's a coercively assigned male at birth and a coercively assigned female at birth, right? And these are used by GSMs and GNC individuals, as well as intersex people describing how they were sexed at birth. And yeah, what's intersex? Intersex are individuals, those with compatible outer and inner genitalia. And it could refer to the fact that these persons did not have a choice in their sexing, or that they had a surgery to correct it, removing the male genitalia. I don't know if women can remove our genitalia, but there that is. Then there's a TERF, TERF, which is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. Now, what does that mean? That is a group of feminists claiming that trans women aren't really women and exclude them from their cause. We don't want to have anything to do with those people, because anytime you call yourself being in a group or a society of people, and they say, well, we don't want you here because you're not who you say you are, and they're purporting to be championing women, and a woman comes in and says, I am a woman. I mean, how are you going to know the difference unless they got hair on their face? And then how is that even going to matter? Because there are women who grow hair on their face. Maybe she just decided she's tired of shaving her hair off of her face and says, I'm just going to be who I am. And that's really what it all comes down to, isn't it? Then there's 8. Number 8 was called the quilt bag. And that stands for queer, questioning, undecided, intersex, lesbian, transgender, right? Transsexual, bisexual, allied, asexual, gay, genderqueer, considered to be more exclusive than LGBT, and easier to remember, quilt bag. And then the last one is called SSM, same-sex marriage, not to be confused with the popular, less inclusive gay marriage, because same-sex marriage means that anyone, whether they be gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, etc., can marry someone of the same sex. Gay marriage simply means that a gay man is marrying a woman. It could mean that. So, I'm trying to educate myself to the language that is being used, because we are living in a time where we have a presidency and an administration who wants to turn back everything that has done to include everyone in the United States of America by dismantling everything that has been done by the Obama administration. And I take offense to that, because I live here with my family, and it's just not my immediate family, it's my entire family. Because, depending on who you are, it's your family too. Because the way things are, people tend to, they recoil and they don't want to talk about things. They don't. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna give you all a little something to listen to. It's called The Grand Scheme of Things. The grand scheme of things. Stop complaining. So you're hungry, but you don't want to cook. Somebody has no food. You don't like your old shoes. Somebody has been barefoot their whole life. You don't like your hair. Somebody lost all their hair to cancer. You wish you could go to the movie with your friends, but you have a responsibility to take care of first, and you feel slighted. Somebody is being bullied at school. You don't want to go to work. Somebody is standing in a food line. You can't stand your neighbor. Somebody just got hit by a car. You sleep on a flat pillow. Somebody has no other choice but to sleep on a dirt floor. You don't care for your old suit or dress or pants because it's just not trendy anymore. Somebody needs clothing because they are destitute. You don't want to discuss why you should respect your elders. Somebody just said goodbye for the last time to someone they love. Stop complaining because you think your life is so hard. Of course, there is always going to be someone who has something more or better than you. You always have something more or better than many people. And if you think I'm only talking to children or teens, look in the mirror. Ask yourself what you complain about, and is it something you really think is a valid complaint, or are you just so used to making that complaint that you've forgotten that you really are okay? We can't and really don't need to live in an ivory castle. Castles keep people out. Castles don't allow people in. Well, that's it, people. Castles don't allow people in. I think we made our biggest mistake when we made one great big old White House. Well, slaves built it. And we said only the people who run the government should live in it, have something to do with it. Did the American people do it to themselves? Yeah. We do it to ourselves all the time. And why? Because they altruistically, they had an idea that this is how they wanted things to go. But in reality, it has not turned out the way they expected. Yeah, our government, it flip-flops so much. There's no telling what could happen right now. But when I think about all the things that are happening in our government, the things that are being turned around, and borders, a country, we're becoming a country that says our borders are for us and nobody else. Our country is saying that our country that we live in are only for people who were born here. But that's not true because, I unfortunately had a conversation with a woman who said, and I quote, "We have to get rid of the border babies." I unfriended her right away. There are people who think that because they were here the longest or because that they're the ones who take over, the alt-right groups or whatever, those in power, they actually think that they have a right to say and be and do all those things that are counterproductive to our society. It's one thing to make strides and move things forward, and they happen from 2008 to 2016. And now we have a presidency and an administration that is, as fast as they can, are dismantling all the progress that has been made in this country over the past 8 or 9 years. And it is affecting everyone and everything and everybody. I don't care who you are. Everybody got some skin in the game at this point. It's unfortunate but true. I got skin in the game. You do. I'm Johanna Bright, also known as or AKA Joe Bright, and this is Poetry Song. I invite my fellow poets and or authors to get in touch with me. I got my chat box open at Poetry Song Radio on Spreaker.com. If you haven't seen the link, go find it. The chat is open. I invite my Facebook friends, my Instagram friends, my people who follow me to chime in. Leave a message. I got about 10 more minutes left on the show right now. And I'm going to play you a little something called Anger Issues. Anger issues. I have them. Yes, I do. I can't remember when I didn't. Sometimes when you least expect it, an infinitesimal thought from a time you haven't given any thought to in a long time takes advantage of a quiet time. It slips in under the radar in a moment of introspection, blasting through like a tidal wave during a day at the park near the shore while you're enjoying a glass of Chardonnay with your significant other, who just happens to be apologizing again. And it's there. And you don't really have a full memory of why anger is an issue. It just is. But anger is in the details. The first time I rolled my eyes in righteous indignation, my youth clouded my ability to see anything except what I wanted. My eyes rolled clean through my teens, and as time passed, as the years do, my hands made gestures clearly not measured in the least explainable. But whenever the feeling of anger arose, it became clear where the fuse started and ended. With me, externally. Hands raised in the air, fists balled into knots, my fingers splayed, pointing accusations at the offending party. And just when I thought there was going to be a time to cool down, my head couldn't stop throbbing because I really didn't realize that my eyes became shot with blood and my face was contorting to a point that I could see harsh lines along my cheekbones. But the worst part was feeling your heart race like a herd of stampeding rhino or elephants. Your jaw aching because before you even said a word, you were grinding and gritting your teeth and your molars so hard, it was what caused the headache in the first place. And you were gripping something balled in your hand and found out it was just tissue. Time is not your friend in times like these. You know it's best to keep your mouth shut. Stay out of it. And sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you just can't. Yeah. See? Told you. I'm Joe Bright. This is Poetry Song Battle for Dominance, BFD. And I am your host. And this is Spreaker.com radio. If you have not been able to check out any of my broadcasts, go ahead and check me out. I Poetry Song with Johanna Bright. BFD, Battle for Dominance, because we battle with poetry every day, believe it or not. At least that's my view of it. It is. You want to catch me again, I'll be on the Jamaica Funk Show tonight at broadcasting from Christoph First from Spreaker.com on the Jamaica Funk Show. And we'll be talking about the criminal justice system. Yeah. It's important. It's amazing how everything can always dovetails into something else. I want you to take some time today and think about what we're talking about, gender fluidity. And I know I gave y'all a whole lot of information at one time. And just to break it down, what gender fluidity is. It is a gender identity which refers to various people who change their identity of gender over a matter of time. And it happens with young people, especially if they don't feel comfortable in the skin that they were born in. They don't know if they should identify as being a male or a female or something else or both. And that's what gender fluidity is all about. A gender fluid person may at any time identify as a male, a female, or neutral, right? Or a neutral is somebody who is a non-binary gender, often associated with the neutral or null gender. And that comes from what they were assigned as birth, right? What's on their birth certificate? Born a baby girl, but grew up feeling like a boy. Or was born with, two sexual organs. You have a penis and a vagina. Or you have a penis and you want a vagina. Or you have a vagina and you want a penis. And that's the part about being born the way you're born, the sexuality. Back in the day, parents were, forcing their children to be something that they weren't. Here today in 2017, in the 21st century, people feel like, don't make me become something that I'm not. I don't feel right, mom and dad. Listen to our children. Don't hurry up and say they can't do that or they don't feel like that, because they have every right to feel the way that they feel. How would you feel if somebody told you, if you were Christian or Buddhist or Jew, and say it's wrong to be that, but you know in your heart that's what you want to do. That's religiously. How about psychologically, emotionally? How about that? Physically is probably the most important thing because kids only identify with what they can touch and feel. It's all hormonal. And until they're old enough to really truly understand what it is that they're feeling, we have to be able to give them the freedom to speak and say, hey, Mom, you know what? I don't feel like a girl today. I don't feel like a boy today. I want to do this and I want to do that. And our country is so far away from the curve of doing that. Kudos to the school in London. Kudos to you, the school headmistress who decided that, you know what, it's very important that we allow our children to try to figure out for themselves how they feel inside. It could be hormonal, it could not be hormonal. But if we keep telling them that they can't say, think, be, and feel a certain way from day to day because that's just not who they are, if your parents have already decided that for you and you still feel otherwise, you know, there are places where you can go. Check out Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a good place to go just to get some, you know, language in your head so that you can enunciate and when you go and talk to your family about how you feel inside, that they can understand how you feel. And because that language gap is the biggest thing that keeps us from being able to communicate with each other. My name is Joe Bright, and this is Poetry Song BFD, Battle for Dominance. I appreciate everybody who's chiming in right now and listening to the playlist that I have prepared for you. I don't have a whole lot of time left. Let's see. Do I have something real short to share with you? I like to think that I do. I'm that person, huh? I don't know. I know what. I'm going to do something that's not recorded. This one is called The Who I Am Now. This thing called self-image. The who I am right now. So I'm looking in the mirror at this person, and she is staring back at me, and she's gotten a little older, and she has the tiny gray hairs on her temples, some small creases in her face, at her cheeks and around her mouth. Her eyes seem a little deeper set and just a little darker. There's wisdom there now. And was my nose always this big and my complexion so pale? But there's this eerie confidence about her now that wasn't there before. Before, I was this girl who portrayed a self-confidence that wavered when a more self-confident person came along. She was always in danger of being molded and shaped into somebody that she didn't want to be but was too timid about the process of growing. And she would let somebody lead her to that person she wanted to be because she didn't know how to do it herself. She was somebody I don't know now. But there she is staring at me from the other side of the mirror. And I really have put her through a lot over the years. In the beginning, her life was like a maze and navigation was difficult at best. And sometimes no matter what decision she opted for, she worried about the outcome. And when she saw that decision she questioned whether she could go back and do something else because really, what if she decided co against pron or pro against con? The pros never seemed to gain much and always seemed to be the odd one out and always wondered why. And the questions kept coming, even after the answers were given, but she kept moving forward. Her life at first always seemed to her to be so unfair, and she wanted to know why making the choice to be good was so great, because good was so boring and she didn't like going back on her word. So she, me, we learned what integrity really meant in action. But was that a bad thing? Had she, me, I not opened the door, taken the chains off, or peeked through the curtains, we could have become someone else, and not the who I am now, which is somebody where I like her smile. She's friendly and outgoing and helpful, and she never lets anything bring her down. She doesn't cower in a corner when she finds herself dealing with adversity. You know, her hands were much stronger before now. But life's dealt the same cards over and over. There have been new decisions and new courses of actions and a turnaround in her mindset, a shift in the way things are, and here I am. So I'm just looking at this girl in the mirror who just stares back at me and wonders where she got the strength to keep going, to persevere. There's more to that. You can read it on my website at mamayaya.wixsite.com. I'm Joe Bright. This is Poetry Song, Battle for Dominance, BFD. Thanks for joining me. Y'all have a blessed day.